Hello, everyone. Today, I just want to have a brief conversation with you in terms of a dream I had. But even before I go into that, I just want to pray that the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart will be acceptable in the Lord's sight, for He is my strength and my Redeemer. Now, the dream was basically where I was in a room, and this room had leaders from Africa, all leaders from Africa. And in terms of their affluence, some were more affluent than the other. And I remember there's one particular man in that group where he basically wanted to source arms illegally. And he was also in that group, right? I'm not saying that all the members of the group were like this man, but I know that they're all leaders within for the continent of Africa. And in terms of the group, it was set up in terms of like a classroom setting. And I remember there was a man talking with this group, but he wasn't an African himself. But I know that he was like a senior salesman, and he was talking to them, and he was basically having conversations more of a philosophical nature, because he was even saying, okay, without law, there wouldn't be any disorder. He was saying stuff like that. And while he was talking, I remember something came in my spirit in terms of what he was saying, and like the spirit came to me and it said something to me in particular what I needed to say to the group. But I raised my hand to say something because I wanted to make a comment. And the person who was basically this senior salesman who was talking to the leaders of the African nation in this classroom setting, he was saying, I hope you're not asking a question that will paint Africa in a bad light. And basically, by saying that, I was kind of taken aback because he didn't even give me an opportunity to say what I wanted to say. But instead of saying what the Spirit told me to say, I said that I have noticed that in certain period of time, there are different leaders that arise in Africa for the different countries in Africa. And for a period of time, the people are usually inspired, and then afterwards, things just goes back to the way they were. Now, in terms of this dream, I just want to give you some context in terms of what I believe this dream is all about. And I will start with First King, chapter 22, and I'll just kind of like give you a brief overview as to what it is saying. And basically, in that time, like Israel and Syria were constantly at war. And the king of Israel at that time was Ahab. And of course, yeah, the king of Judah, who was Jehoshaphat. And the king of Israel was basically saying to Jehoshaphat that if he knows that Ramoth Gilead is his, so basically he wanted to go back and claim that territory. And Jehoshaphat then said to the king, I'm just paraphrasing here because the chapter is quite large. Jehoshaphat then asked the king that if he wasn't a prophet among them who could basically inquire of the Lord to see what the Lord had to say in terms of whether or not they should actually go to war to try to gain back Ramoth Gilead. And at the time, Ahab called, there were like prophets there, like 400 prophets were there, and they were all prophesying the same thing to saying that, okay, then if they go to war, it is going to be successful. And there was a messenger that was sent to Micaiah. I'll read chapter 13. And the messenger that was gone to call Micaiah spake unto him, saying, Behold now, the words of the prophets declare good unto the king with one mouth. Let thy word, I pray thee, be like the words of one of them, and speak that which is good. Now, it's kind of bring me back to my dream in terms of the fact that this man who was talking to the leaders who were of the African nation were all saying was saying to me, he's hoping I'm not saying anything negative in terms of what anything negative in terms of Africa, right? And it kind of brings me my attention back to this specific chapter and verse, right? So if you continue down, you see that Micaiah basically was saying that he won't speak anything other than what the Lord basically tells him to speak to the king who were there at the time. Now, if you fast forward to Jonah, right? And I know I'm saying a lot today, but I'm just wanted to understand where I believe my dream is coming from, right? So basically, Jonah was a prophet, and the Lord had sent him to speak to a city, and it was a great city. It was called Nineveh. And Jonah was trying to basically flee from the presence of the Lord, and because he didn't want to go and speak with to these to Nineveh, right? And of course, he went out in a ship, and then there was like a strong wind, and the ship was basically being tossed through and fro in the wind. And he eventually they cast Jonah overboard, and of course, he was then swallowed up by a large fish, and he was in the mouth of the fish for like 3 days, until eventually he prayed, and then the Lord delivered him. Now, when Jonah actually went back, no, the Lord came to Jonah a second time, and he was then obedient to the word of the Lord. And he then went to Nineveh, basically to say, okay, then within 40 days, the Lord is going to destroy this city, right? But when the people heard this news, the king, the people, and even the animals, they basically like a full change of mind in terms of how they're operating. And they were like fasting and praying in sackcloth and ashes, right? And when the Lord saw, I'll go to Jonah 1, verse 10. And God saw their works, that they turned from their evil ways, and God repented of the evil that he had said that he would do unto them, and he did it not. So basically, then you find a situation where a city is warned in terms of their dealings. If their dealings are unrighteous, God will warn the city and give them an opportunity to repent. And you see in this case, the city, the king, and the persons within the city repented, and the Lord relented from what he was planning to do to that city. Now, finally, I'll go to the actual word that I got in the dream, and that is in Second Chronicles. It's from Second Chronicles 7, verse 14. And basically, it's when Solomon was dedicating the temple that he had built to the Lord. And he was basically dedicating the temple. And I'm just paraphrasing once more. And if you go to verse 14, and this is a word that came to me in the dream when that person was presenting to the leaders who were all members from the African nation. And it goes like this: If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sins, and will heal their land. Now, I believe that this message is not necessarily to any one group in Africa or any one group of people. I believe this is a general statement, which I believe the Lord is saying to us, that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then he will forgive their sins and heal their lands. Now, I just want you to just have this in mind as you go through your regular day, whatever you're doing, and whatever position you find yourself in. If you just humble yourself and pray and seek God and turn from whatever that is not right in the sight of the Lord, I believe that he will give you a breakthrough in your life. Thank you for listening to me, and have a good day.